Greetings, brothers and sisters. So this is just a brief introduction. I'm going to get into other stuff and eventually some Hollywood celebrities dropping like flies stuff. But I wanted to address this first. I did a 5 minutes of transmission in my last video here. And a number of people responded that they felt something and had some experience with it, which is kind of on the rare side. It's not especially something that's not the ideal conditions to experience the transmission. So I wanted to let everyone know who felt something, if they want to pursue that. There is the Gratefulness meditation. It's spelled with 2 L's. If you search it without the 2 L's, you're not going to find it. And so there was people who were bummed out that I was using 2 L's, but there was a reason for it, and it's that it won't come up if you use 1 L. But it's Gratefulness Meditation Apocalypse Now. There's links in the description box of all my videos on my other 2 channels to find this channel. And it's a very comprehensive channel. There's a video that comes up right away, explains Gratefulness Meditation. And then there's a series of playlists. This one right here is the Introductory Sittings playlist. And it is 3 individual meditations on 3 consecutive days. And there is a video on each of the playlists that explains what to do and what's going on and all these things. And there's multiple videos that explain the Gratefulness meditation, which is just the Saj Mark practice I've done for years. And everything's free, and the transmission is there. And those of you who want to experience it, it's there for you to try. Like I said, the people who felt something, it's 1 out of so many people, 1 out of 40, 1 out of 100, I don't know, that feel the transmission, but it's not, again, it wasn't ideal to do it in a short video like that, the short, whatever. But there are people who said that they had experiences, and, there is, I don't know, it's been a very beneficial system for me, and anybody who wants to try it is welcome to try it and, see if it helps them. It's an experiential system, and, again, it's not the easiest thing to feel the transmission in the middle of a video that's more, dense with whatever, but people did feel it. And, that wasn't the purpose of why I did it, but now I'm thinking that I'm going to do this regularly for people who want to try it. And, some people will be in the right, space, and they have sensitivity enough to experience a transmission. So it's a good way for people to sort of, get a taste of something that they might want to pursue in the future. So I just wanted to address the flat earth stuff because I made a video about it last time, and flat earthers always show up and they always do what flat earthers do. I mean, there's a few people that said, I believe in the flat earth, but I like your videos and I don't care. I don't care what you believe. Not in a bad way. And that's, that's not the group I'm talking about. Like those people who believe in flat earth but don't have to tell everybody about it and don't care if somebody else doesn't. But it's the flat earthers that every time they hear something that, a person believes in the round earth or whatever it might be, they have to say something, right? They have to, like it's flat and, firmament, whatever, like it's just there in them. And then the negative social structure that came out of the flat earth movement. What it was like to deal with flat earthers, and then how that played out in terms of it defining the truth community, that, they're always looking for ways to dismiss truthers. That's their main goal. Oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're paranoid. Oh, you believe in the flat earth. Oh, you're one of those QBs, right? These things. Looking for ways to dismiss it. And, inherently that isn't a bad thing in terms of, I don't care if people, there's going to be a lot of people dying off. There's going to be a die-off, and when things really start getting real, your beliefs don't mean anything. Like I say this all the time. I don't care about my own beliefs, so why should I care about yours? Like my own beliefs are, they're meaningless. It's what you end up doing with it, right? Lots of people believe in something, but do they actually do anything to change anything, or do they do anything to embrace those beliefs or whatever? And so, if you believe that the system's collapsing, for example, well, then what are you going to do about it? Just talk about it on the internet? I guess that's something, but it's not really much of anything. And so there are these belief wars that are just suck up energy and create drama. and I don't care about them. Like, so that's why I don't cover things like this very much with the flat earthers or any of these other groups. I talk about the QBs from time to time, but they're kind of done. But the damage that they did to our ability to express ourselves and the censorship is another matter. And they were used against us. They were weaponized against us. And the flat earthers never realized that this is a problem for other people. It's selfishness. Like, your movement failed. Like, it's not going to catch on. And the people that it's catching on with are not the desirable group of people that you want. And those flat earthers became the QBs, and they did even worse. They were even worse and created more problems for all of us in our ability to express ourselves on the internet, and never think about like anybody else or the people that built this, whatever it is, the truth community, and just kind of be able to strategize and say, all right, this isn't working. This isn't, it's not having the desired effect. It's how it's working in reverse. It's creating more problems. It's not toppling the system. It's emboldening and empowering the Democrats. It gives the Democrats and the liberals a straw man, the media and the, whatever it is, the controlling system a straw man, so they can get more support and votes and money and things like this. They use flat earthers and more so the QBs as a way to raise money and get support and scare, the voting public or whatever. So it's not working. Like, stop talking about it. Like, it's failed. Like, just. So I want to show you some of the research I did when I first heard about it, because I did research. Okay, so there's one comment I want to read about this. There's a few that I guess there was one I was going to address that I forgot. I didn't do a screenshot of it. But this is the one that's more important. Paul, take an infrared camera with you the next time you do some commercial plane travel. This is a flat earther to the big parasite and the firmament hoax. You will see hundreds of miles farther than you are supposed to, according to the official globe model. Of course, you will refuse to give it a try. Why is it always like we have to do extraordinary things to see something that we're not going to see the same thing as you are? Like, I showed you some of the research in my last video, the sunset and the sun disappearing around the horizon. But I did something else, because when I first heard about flat Earth was when I was in Sri Lanka with my family. My ex was about to, go back to America in a, like sort of a, putting me and my kids in a bad situation and leaving me alone to deal with all these problems. And she would disappear and we would never see each other again. Like, that was at the end of our marriage. But we had to travel back and forth to Sri Lanka to get our visas renewed. Sri Lanka is like Cuba in relationship to India. And it was a messed up country, and there's a lot of chaos going on. But I was, looking up the flat Earth stuff. And, I was using the ocean, because there's a western-facing ocean, a sunset where you would see the sunset. And I was using this to figure out, if there was proof of some sort of curvature or whatever, or not in these things. And there are these boats. I had heard that Christopher Columbus, he was able to look over the horizon and see boats coming up, like their mass would become visible before anything else, because they were on the curvature of the earth and the other side of the water. And the ocean is one of the places where you really get to see something, which I'll show you, because there's a couple of video clips I'll get to here that people have done this, not as a way to debunk flat Earth, but just people had showed this. And I saw these boats going out, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But it proved to me, from what I was seeing, that, there you could see the curvature just based on what was happening with the boats. And I'm sure there's some flat Earth theory out there to debunk this, because they never will change. There's nothing you can show them that's going to change that. People who don't believe in flat Earth or believe in the round Earth just don't care. They're just, it's not interesting to them, because they're not, the whole flat Earth thing is just a joke or a nightmare or whatever to them. The flat earthers just are impossible. They can't change. But this person's saying, bring an infrared camera, right? Paul, take an infrared camera with you next time you go on commercial plane travel. So you want me to buy an infrared camera and look out the window. He said, get a window seat. And, hopefully I'll be able to have a good view without clouds or whatever. And I'll see that the earth is flat. Like this is, you know, uh, and then of course you refuse to give it a try. Well, like I said, I looked into this, and this is what I came up with. And the flat earthers didn't like what I said. They unsubscribed all these people. And, I said, this is what I saw. This is my findings. So let me show you the video anyway. I just want to move on from this, but, it's there to be seen. Okay, so there is an old video, and I can't find it, but this video here is an example of this where boats disappear over the horizon. And you really can't see it with the naked eye because, this idea that the curvature is somehow, the curvature of the earth is within distance of you being able to see it. Not really. Like on the ocean, yes, other places, it's not very easy to see. And so you can see this boat here is disappearing where the last line of the ocean you can see. And I'll show you this in a better video that's there. There was an old video where somebody used a high, I don't know what you call it, like a, something with a zoom lens, and videotaped a boat going over the horizon there. But here you see the boat disappearing. Again, this isn't the best video, but I like this video where this woman, it's called How Boats Vanish Over the Horizon, and she talks about well, let's just listen to this part right here at the beginning.
Keep in mind that this is an empty horizon. There are no visible boats. As we zoom in, we see two boats appear along what I call the wavefront edge, which is the blue line of last discernible water.
That's a nice way to say it, last discernible water. Because I saw this in Sri Lanka when people asked me about, I found out about the flat earth model. And there is a line of water, you're seeing the ocean from an angle, like whatever height you have and however far up you are on the beach allows you to see into the distance, right? If you were down here at water level, you wouldn't be able to see that far out. The higher you go, the farther out you can see. And at some point, there is this line where that's the last discernible water and everything behind it is blocked by the water in front of it. Of course, if there are waves, it's harder to see at all, right? Waves are blocking this line here. But there's a point where the ocean's below where you can see. And you can't see the ocean behind this line.
We also can see, as we zoom in further, something I call the mirror line. It is a reflection that forms under the boats after they pass the wavefront edge.
So you see, and I noticed this myself, this boat is disappearing over the horizon, right? You can't see all of the boat. And like if she goes through this thing here.
It is traveling at significant.
So this boat here, all you can see is the sail. And the rest of the boat is below the last visible line of water. This shows you that the earth isn't flat. This is, another indication of the round earth model being the one. And here's the one she says.
The motorboat arriving from the right illustrates for us that it has its own mirror line that is distinct from the one of our main boat in the background.
And this boat's just disappeared over the horizon, right? You can see that the mast now looks like half of the boat. See, the issue being here that it's so far out once you see her zoom back in. I mean, the boats, you can't even see them with your naked eye. So it's hard to, there's going to be some distortion and whatever. But you see that the boat has disappeared. You can't see it. And this happens, I witnessed this myself in Sri Lanka. It is, you can, I had binoculars and I was using my phone. But you can see it, right? Like you can see the thing disappearing. The water is, and I'll explain this again in a voiceover.
As I take this moment to zoom out and observe the overall structure keep in mind that now the ship appears to be shorter than the channel marker.
See, earlier in the video, she showed that the channel marker seemed to be equal with the boat, and it was closer. But now that it's gone farther away from the channel marker, it is dropping down on the other side of the curvature of the Earth. And this is what it looks like with the naked eye. It's blurry enough and it is distorted enough. It's hard enough to capture this, even with a good camera, that people say, well, no, that's not what you're seeing or whatever. And that's fine. That's what flat earthers will do. And I just, like I said, there's the hardest group to convince that what they're doing is, their belief is wrong. So, it's not my job to do that. But there were a few things I did in Sri Lanka that, allowed me to come up with my own, opinion through my own personal observational research. And whatever she calls it, the line of last visible ocean is a real thing. And with a telescope or proper binoculars even, or a really good camera, you should be able to see almost forever on the ocean. With the proper telescopes, certainly. Telescopes are so powerful, these telescopes now. You should be able to go on the beach and just look forever on the ocean, because the ocean, there's nothing blocking your view. On land, it's different because of mountains and terrain and the topography and all these things. But with, the ocean, it is just going to be flat all the way. And so you would be able to see for a very long way. But the line of visible ocean, you can see the last line of visible ocean, you can see with your eyes, especially when it's fairly calm and there's no waves. There's a point where all the water behind what you can see is, because of the curvature of the Earth, is below that line. And it's not because the line is out of your visual range, because it's the same line whether you use telescopes or any of these things. And that line is pretty far out, but it's still within, if you have fairly good eyesight or glasses or whatever, you can see it. You can see there's a point where you can't see the water behind it. And that's significant, because if it's flat, you could see on forever. And especially, like I said, with a telescope and, some kind of enhancement. And I was watching these little boats, and they had these little sailboats that were fishing, and they were all the same size. And there was one day there was 20 or 30 of them. And, I had some sort of a cell phone, but it wasn't a quality cell phone. It wasn't, what I have now with an iPhone. And I don't know if an iPhone would be able to pick it up any better. But I tried to video it, and it just didn't come out in any way that was clear enough for people to be able to see. But what I was able to see with the iPhone and binoculars was these boats would disappear. And you could see that the sails, because these were all the same size boats, the ones that were farther out had dropped down below the ones that were closer. And, it wasn't just because they were getting smaller as you moved away. And all you could see was a sail, because the boats were very small. It wasn't this big boat that she's videoing here. It was a small boat that had maybe 1.5 feet of boat, and it would just disappear. And the ones that were farther out would disappear more. And there was a line where you could see was the last line of visual water. And once the boats crossed that, then this phenomenon began. The boats started to just sink away, and this is what Christopher Columbus saw, and, this is whatever. And again, it's, if you don't want to see it, you're not going to see it. So I looked into it, and I've had these observations, every once in a while I've seen things, and certainly when I was sun gazing and, I had stuff with the sun, and the sun moves. The model just doesn't work, right? The flat earthers, and you don't have to answer me, but do you know, if you're a flat earther, can you answer the question, what are the sun and moon spinning around, right? You have this model where the sun and the moon, there's a model without gravity, and, it's different people making up different models because they don't have a working one. And so they're trying to figure out how to make a model that fits with with time zones and other things. And they leave out other parts of the sun's, The sun isn't just spinning around flatly. It has a curve in its arc of. I tracked the sun's course back when I was sun gazing. I got into the sun. This is years before the flat Earth stuff. And I was, kind of documenting without, you can't stare at the sun for obvious reasons, but documenting its path across the sky. And what I noticed is what most people notice in the summer is, the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, the sun is high up in the sky. And the angle of the sun and the arc of the sun is more extreme. And it's longer, and its path is a much longer arc where it's, visible for a longer part of the day, and it gets high up in the sky, and it gets significantly lower on the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. And then the other equinoxes. And it's kind of fascinating, but it's an arc, and it's not just spinning around some unknown celestial object. That model doesn't work. This model of the new flat Earth model. The other question would be, what's keeping the sun and the moon from descending to Earth? Because in the flat Earth model, the sun and the moon are the same size, and they're much smaller than Earth, and they're spinning around some unknown celestial object. And if you don't have an answer for the unknown celestial object, you don't have an answer for why they're not being pulled down to Earth, and a reasonable one, not just some made-up childish thing that is just there to keep your belief system where it is, right? And those are the questions you have to ask yourself. Then you realize, oh, I don't have a working model. The flat earthers don't have a working model, and they can't explain it. And if you can't explain it, you're a flat earther. If you don't know how the model works, then, why are you talking about it, right? Like, you're asking people to believe something you don't even understand. And you do it in a way that it's the behaviors that are worse than the belief. The belief, it doesn't matter. Really, what difference does it matter if you believe the earth is flat around? Like, it's not something that affects us on a daily basis. The system lies to us, but we already know that. Like, if you're a flat earther saying this is just another way the system lies to us, you don't need to prove flat earth to prove that the system is a deceptive system. And so, it doesn't matter, but it's the behaviors that the flat earthers exhibited in the desperation that set off a set of behaviors that matriculated into the cubies and just made it suck to be a truther. So I'm done with this. I don't like talking about it. I want this whole debate, this whole thing. I hoped it was more or less dead. But of course, with the big parasite, he's just always, glomming onto things like other people's beliefs, other people's research and things. And he glommed onto this. I'll talk about that. I already did a voiceover about that, and I'll do that at the end of the video. But let's get into the Hollywood celebrities dropping like flies stuff. Okay, so here's the Hollywood celebrities dropping like flies part. Las Vegas, I got COVID, and sadly, this is Jimmy Kimmel's. Las Vegas, I got COVID, and sadly, we need to cancel this weekend's Strike Force 3 show. Oh, so people are going to really miss out with some serious comment. I could never live with myself if I got my hometown friends sick. Thanks to all who purchased tickets, everyone will get full refunds, and we will need to reschedule if possible. That's Jimmy Kimmel's. One of my viewers just sent me this morning. It's kind of important. Out of 100 of American cities examined by a new study, only one saw the number of married households with children increase. U.S. cities saw an increase in the number of people living alone between 2016 and 2023, a new study found. Within 342 largest U.S. cities, the rate of single people living alone jumped 28%. Meanwhile, only Odessa, Texas saw an uptick in number of married families with children. Amid declining birth and marriage rates nationwide, it's no surprise that American cities are seeing an uptick in the number of people living alone. This is, the beginning of the end, or the middle of the end. I don't know. It's getting close to the end of America as we now know it, and also European cities, because birth rate declines is the end of your civilization, your empire. When the birth rate goes below a certain amount and it's It's like below 2.1 or whatever it is. And it's like it's down to like 1.8, 1.9. It's not something you can reverse. But in that, there is a time period where a species goes from increasing population to decreasing population. And for white people, that's already happened. For white people, European descent people, that's already happened all across the globe, especially in Europe and America. So the numbers are deceptive. Even if you take out like the other demographics, people of color, people who aren't Caucasian, you can see that white people are just not reproducing and are going to be absorbed, or they're just not going to be any white people in some time in the future. There might be combination of mixed people, but white people are going to disappear. And America is whatever 60% Caucasian or whatever it is. Of course, the European countries, and then globally there's going to be population reduction as well, and there's going to be a massive die-off. But even if there isn't a massive die-off, when the birth rate declines, right now there's more births than deaths. The last time I checked, it was like 144 million births to like 56 million deaths. Let me check that now. Okay, so my numbers are fairly accurate to what I remember last reporting. This was before COVID. And I don't know which videos they were in. I'd go back and check them. But it was 142 million people. I covered this in a number of videos. So it was 142 million new births per year. And now that's dropped by 10 million or 9 million births. So that is, so you can see this in this article. It was up around 140 million, above 140 million through the 2000s all the way up to 2019, right before COVID. And then you see a sharp decline here, right? This is where there's just a huge decline, like we're going down significantly in births. And then the death rate was 67 million, right? And before it was, and here's a graph of that. You can see it here. Look, just click on this. We'll get a bigger version of it. It's the same article, right? It's gone up significantly. It was just at, let's get rid of this ad here. It was just at 2019. It was just at 50 whatever million, right? It was 53. It was 56 million the last time I checked. And so as of 2022, and it's going up, and the birth rates are going down in 2023 this year. It's just going to continue in this trend. And you're going to get to the point where there are more deaths than births. And once that happens, and that might be very soon, like the birth rate's going to decline even more rapidly, and then there'll be more deaths. But you don't even need more deaths, because deaths are, inevitable. It's the birth rate that means everything. And as the birth rate declines and the death rate continues to rise, and you get to a point where there's more, more deaths than births. Now you have like larger population segments of people who are, older people. There's more older people than there are younger people. That's the other aspect of this. There's a lot more, huge population chunks of, people in like the baby boomers, for example, than there are, young people to have babies. Like there's less and less young people have babies, and more single people, more and more depressed people, more and more low functioning people. So this is happening, and everything's going to change. It's going to change the whole way that human beings exist. When your population's decreasing as opposed to increasing, everything changes. And it's hard to imagine a world where that's the case, because it's been hundreds of years, centuries of increased human population on the planet. So I'm in the editing process. I just want to add one little tidbit here. And I don't know if I talked about this before, but when you have overpopulation, any species, now they've studied this with mice and rats. They take a small area and they create a dense overpopulation. Of course, the animals start eating their own young, and they just, all these things happen. They have more self-destructive behaviors. They exhibit like, basically insanity for rats and mice. But across the board, when there's overpopulation, nature has a way of getting rid of that because overpopulation is a threat to the environment of any species. And if you study overpopulation in humans, overpopulation is always in population density. It isn't global. You don't measure the population globally, although that is a part of the problem. I mean, it's a bigger part of the problem. But you can have overpopulation of humans in a small area around the world. And what happens is the same thing that happens in other species is that you get idiocracy. There's a dumbing down. There's a weakness that enters into the genetic makeup of the creature. There's self-destructive behaviors, depression, suicide, all these types of things. All the things that you see here. When people look at the world and go, why is everything so messed up? Why do our leaders suck? Why is everybody like worse than they used to be? And why is things going in the wrong direction? It's overpopulation. These things kick in. They start, these contingencies to reduce the population and minimize your destructive effect of your species contaminating the environment kick in. And there's nothing you can do about it because it has to be stopped. And then eventually it kicks in and there's, a major reduction in population. So much so that the human species will be, there'll be a threat that we're going to go extinct, and we may go extinct. Like the worst time in terms of when you're most vulnerable to extinction is right when you're at the highest level of your population density. And it just creates, diseases, all these things. And that's where we are. So, So a few people sent me this, including my wife.
Does anybody live in New York City, and did you just have your house sprayed with pesticides? I was in my living room, my windows are open, these trucks come by, they're making these dystopian announcements. Run inside, get inside.
The city is applying pesticides to reduce the threat of the West Nile virus.
What the?
Exposure to the pesticide, please. Go indoors immediately until the trucks have passed.
Now, West Nile virus, in terms of, I believe that's all, they're trying to get rid of mosquitoes. And West Nile virus is, whatever it is, but it isn't a big deal, right? It isn't, a big threat. And so pesticides are poisonous, and things that kill insects, we share genetic material with all the life on Earth, and things that kill other living animals usually will have a negative effect on us. And, of course, people have bad livers as it is. But the comments here in the Deep South, which is basically a big swamp with buildings on it, this is a regular thing. There's lots of comments of people saying this happens all the time. Acting Temple University President Joanna A. Epps dies after falling ill on stage. So she got sick, and then, she suffered a sudden episode, a lot of sudden episodes there. Biden uses executive power to create a New Deal-style American climate corps, not corpse, core. After being thwarted by Congress, President Biden will use executive authority to create a New Deal-style American climate corps that will serve as a major green jobs training program. Sufjan Stevens, diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome, says he's relearning to walk. I remember, I just covered Guillain-Barré. It's an autoimmune disease. I don't know, a bunch of other people have had this. Somebody, I don't know, recently.
What the hell is this? Guys, what is this? Guys, all of you, out right now.
Jared, I'm here to tell you that I'm quitting.
Okay, there's a happy guy who hired a band so he could quit his job. Biden tells Zelensky that U.S. will send Ukrainian ATACMS long-range missiles. I was going to cover this more in depth. Maybe I'll move this to my other. I don't have enough time to go into this, but I'll move this to my other side of the aisle, and I'll cover this tomorrow on my other channel, maybe. Fact check, Michelle Obama finally releases photos of herself pregnant. They are not photos of her pregnant. It's Photoshop. Somebody's, trolling her. So Travis Kelcie, Killer Trav, this is his official Instagram page. He did a commercial for Pfizer. And one of my viewers sent me this, and he is getting roasted. 0 to hero. I mean, you can read all this stuff for it, but this is almost everybody who's commenting are pissed about his doing a commercial for Pfizer. Here it is. Travis Kelcie gets trolled online for promoting bloop in Pfizer commercial.
Travis, did you know you can get this season's COVID-19 shot when you get your flu shot?
Two things at once.
Travis is really stupid. I've seen him in a couple of things. He was on some comedy show. There's this kind of not a great show, a little bit funny. It was like these guys who were simulating they were in Mars, but they were in the Arizona desert, and he was in like the first episode. But he's just not smart, and some of the things he said. Anyways.
Two things at once! Two things at once! I'll have the 2 things at once, please. Now back to 2 things at once. 2 things at once.
That's not 2 things at once.
Mom!
Travis, ask about getting this season's COVID-19 shot when getting your flu shot. Travis.
So this was his commercial. And then he posted that other thing on Instagram, and he got roasted. And here it is, all these things. So, this is where people are at right now. General Hospital star John J. York takes hiatus from show for blood, bone, marrow disorder. There's that. Chicago Bears defensive coordinator Alan Williams resigns amid rumors. He said it was to take care of his family. Apparently, the headquarters at Bearfield were raided by the FBI. So anyway, dude's in trouble with the FBI. Zelensky asked Marina Abramovich to be ambassador for the Ukraine. Artists will lend her voice to help rebuild schools and other things in the country. So that, that tells you everything you need to know, right? Finger missing the flesh. Fingers, the missing flesh. Indiana baby suffers over 50 rat bites to face in squalid home. Well, that's just like, let's move on to that. Nobody needs to. New York requires flood disclosures in home sales as sea levels rise and storms worsen. So that's, I thought it said food disclosures. But they're, flooding insurance is hard to get. This guy, heartbreaking news. We're told 12-year-old Caden Gunter has died after experiencing a medical emergency at football practice on Tuesday, which was more than likely cardiac arrest. Saltwater intrusion in the Mississippi River could impact drinking water in Louisiana, officials say. Camille Vasquez casually bragging about using psychological warfare on Amber Heard. Says here, Camille Vasquez said that during the Depp versus Heard trial, there may have been, as she emphasized, a bit of psychological warfare at play. She said even in the morning during the trial, a female member of Depp's legal team may have gone into the women's restroom at the court used by Mrs. Heard and sprayed Mr. Depp's cologne in the stalls. Wow, like that. That crappy Sauvage. You mean Sauvage? Like I mocked that commercial. Sauvage. Sauvage, brilliant. Her discussion about her legal career was both refreshing and honest, and she be inspiring to young women looking to enter into the legal profession. I'm very happy that I chose this general session to attend. Well worth it. Here's this Tools commercial. He's a rocker. He's in a band called the Hollywood Vampires. That's the name of his band. I ask you not. Look at him go. He's a hard-rocking dude. He's a great actor and a rocker.
I gotta get out of here.
He's got to get out of the city. Where you going to go, Johnny? Johnny, where you going to go, you hard rocker, you? Where you going to go, you manly man? Get out of the city. Get out of the oil fields and right outside of Hollywood or wherever he lives. There you go. Get out to the desert.
I don't know.
There's a bison just walking around the middle of the desert on the cement where there's all this grazing material over here in an area that they don't live. What's that bison doing there, Johnny? Johnny, you manly wild man, you. Look at him go with his cool hot rod. Get out there. Oh, there's another animal flying by. What you got a shovel for there, Johnny?
What am I looking for?
There's a coyote. There's a yodi up there. Just jumped on Johnny's car. Get out there, Johnny. Just go. Take off your jewelry. Get into this thing.
Something I can't see.
Something you can't see.
I can feel it.
He can feel it. He can. He can feel it in his bones.
It's magic.
It's magic. Look at those. Look at that makeup reel. He wears this makeup like the manliest man in the world.
Sauvage.
Sauvage. Sauvage.
Dior.
Dior. And so, you know. There they are. Sauvage and Dior. They stood behind him even after his legal woes. The CDC and genetically modified mosquitoes. Good thing to file Johnny Depp. Somebody sent me this today. These two comedic powerhouses, Rosie O'Donnell and Kathy Griffin. She doesn't have the lip tattoo anymore. So they were together on a podcast. This was kind of interesting here.
In the 1990s, you could very easily predict upcoming global crises just by how much pizza was being delivered to US intelligence buildings. This was first discovered by Frank Meeks, who owned 45 Domino's stores in Washington, D.C. He noticed that approximately 72 hours before a major global event was announced to the public, pizza deliveries to US government buildings would skyrocket, indicating that the staff was working around the clock on something. And Frank called this the pizza meter. Frank's pizza meter accurately predicted many events, including the Kuwait War. In the lead up to the Kuwait War, pizza deliveries increased from 50 pizzas a day to 125 per day. And prior to the invasion, they would never deliver a pizza to the White House after 9 p.m. But during the invasion, they were there all hours of the night. Since Frank made the pizza meter public, the US government stopped ordering large quantities from one provider. And they also stopped ordering delivery and instead sent people to go get the pizzas and bring them back.
So, and that's interesting. Okay, so these guys have a giant scooter, and they're wearing pink outfits, and they're going down the road. It's got 3 wheels in the back, 1 wheel in the front, and the cops grab them for some reason. Did they steal the giant scooter, or this person's coming in, or here it is. Somebody sent me that. I don't know why. So this is an Elon Musk guy, and this is Droopy Dog Jake Tappas.
SpaceX CEO Elon Musk has recently confirmed a report that last year Musk blocked access to his Starlink satellite network in Crimea. Should there be repercussions for that?
Not at all, Jake. Elon Musk saved the world from a bigger war by refusing to accept Zelensky's demands.
Really? None of this concerns you?
Not at all, and I think you should be happy about it too, but you're not, because you work for CNN, and CNN is a warmonger who profits more as the war escalates. So, you, Jake.
So this dude was at the crash site.
In the bathroom taking a shave, and I heard a screeching, between a screech and a whistle. I said, what in the world is this? And I heard a boom. Then my whole house shook.
White says he didn't realize it was a plane at the time, so he didn't call anybody.
The first thought came to me, I said, well, what's a meteorite coming out of space or something? And I said, well, if the airplane, it needed to be reported. That thing was flying just too low.
The F-35B airplane wreckage created an extensive...
So kaboom. So here's Ringo Starr coming on the stage. And he trips. And kaboom. So he was in New Mexico concert. I covered this before. Bobert, drag queen who worked at bar owned by Bobert's Beetlejuice date, claims they've been dating for months, even when she was married. So that kind of lets you know a lot, just the headline alone, right? This person right here works at the bar of, she's supposed to be very conservative and against people like that. And yet she's dating somebody who owns a bar, and she got involved with groping and other things, vaping. F-35 911 call. We've got a pilot in our house, as he says he got ejected. I don't know when that story's going away, but it seems like it's going away quickly. Dwayne Wade tried to break up with Gabrielle Union before admitting he had a baby with another woman. Way to go, Dwayne. Kathy Griffin accuses Kanye West of controlling Bianca Censori and making her wear risque outfits. She has no voice. There she has the lip tattoos there. Dixie D'Amio details extreme battle with anxiety, depression amid battle with PMDD. What is PMDD? Premenstrual dysmorphic disorder. She's, like a TikToker, I think. Like she does dances, I believe. Jonas fires back at Sophie Turner's lawsuit. I did not abduct my children. There's lots of headlines in page 6. I'm not covering the divorce, but that's just a classic headline. She looks very demonic in that in her makeup. David Foster's daughter blasts Newsom's leadership in California. Is the goal to be a socialist state? Music icon David Foster's daughters declared their hate for Governor Newsom on Thursday, blaming the Democrat for the state's deteriorating quality of life and wondering whether his goal is to have California be a socialist state. Well, that's, of course, his goal. I'm jealous because if anyone follows you, you know there's a lot of compliments about the city we live and the state we live in. The world's first podcast is what she said this on. Why don't you just leave, guys? It's not that easy. It's just not that easy to leave L.A. 49ers fans get into massive brawl at Levi Stadium during Giants matchup. There was another brawl with Giants fans where a Giant fan died. Savannah Chrisley's ex-fiancé Nick Kirdalis, 29, dies in motorcycle crash. I usually want to move on when I'm covering something for a long period of time just because the condition of the thing affects me. The person, whatever it is. Like I can cover Alec Baldwin for short periods of time and, light mockery and things like that. But any subject matter I cover for a while, I absorb the condition. I have to connect with whatever it is. And, of course, this thing with the big parasites more personal and, there's like he's listening or whatever he's doing and his group of people and there's whatever that is. But, I always want to move on. That's why I say I hope this is the last time I talk about this for that reason. At some point, what more is there to say? Like other people have said similar things. People have shared their experiences. There's lots of people who have had, breaks with him, people who know him personally or have been in that cult and have left all this stuff. And so, there's like at some point I just hope I don't have to be the person talking about this anymore. And, all the things that I realize that are new, I want to, I feel like it's my obligation to conclude them here. But the sooner I wrap this up, the better it is for me. And so I did a voiceover last night and I had a few more things to say after that. There isn't really any more comments to respond to, I think. And so, hopefully this will be maybe the last time I talk about this. I always say that and then something else happens. But, for me, I'm ready to move on. But anyways, this is the voiceover from last night. Okay, I got a few comments tonight. This is still Saturday 23rd. It's late at night. It's 11:45. I got a few comments that I didn't really think were all that important. But then I was like, well, they kind of are. This thing that happened with the big parasite is something unique to my, my channel, but not unique to my life. Right? That's something I experienced with my ex and other people who have these types of personalities. People who are spiritual vampires, people who are, whatever you want to call them, parasitic in nature. And they suck energy off of people. And they will do it their whole existence. And they may or may not be conscious of it. But they, on some level are conscious, and that really doesn't matter. And most people just don't really understand it, but I do. And so, I am, in a sense, the right man for the job in this case, or any case like this. One person wrote that this person's my nemesis, and I'm like, that my nemesis? This isn't my nemesis. There's no nemesis. And a bunch of people wrote, well, I like you both. I'm still going to like you both, and I hope this drama passes, and there's going to be some kumbaya moment. And, both of us are at fault, or some people said, well, he said some things and you said some things. And I had some of his supporters who said, one person said, well, if a person gives you credit, is that still a parasite? And then another person said, well, yeah, of course it is. And not that he gave credit, because he mentioned my name or other people's names, or he said, oh, this guy does good work. He literally stole bits. He stole comedic bits from me. He did the woo bit. I have that. I still think I have that somewhere, where he said woo. I'm not going to show it again because I'm not promoting the guy. But he stole the woo bit. He stole one of my stories. He stole my allegedly bit and my how dare you bit. And these are things people reported to me, some of them a long time ago. And allegedly is something new, but everything else I kind of knew about. But more importantly, stole my energy, sucked off my energy, and tried to use my legitimacy, at least in terms of other people, using my name like I endorsed him, right? My wife and I just watched this HBO documentary called Telemarketers, and it's really excellently done. It's a 3-episode thing. And there's these guys who worked at this telemarketing, one of these early telemarketing places, maybe about 20 years ago, the internet was just getting going. And many of them were convicted felons. They were using drugs while they were telemarketing. And at work, it was like this, if you ever saw The Wolf of Wall Street and the work environment, where they're like hookers and, drugs and criminals and things. And they were representing the police union. They were calling people and getting money on behalf of the police union. They had the police unions endorse them. And there's layers of crime, and, these two guys document this, and they're both kind of low-life people who have kind of a conscience. And, they were calling on behalf and pretending to be associated with police and giving out those stickers that people think will get them out of a traffic ticket or whatever. They were calling people who were illegal aliens and, extorting them for money and things like this, all this stuff. But using somebody's name and using this idea that they were cops when they weren't is what was being done by the big parasite, right? He uses all these people. He says, oh, this guy's, he makes it sound like we're together and we're not, right? And then a comment I got tonight, and I regret deleted it right after I did it, but the person, had this lengthy thing, and he was a fan of mine, and, but how dare I claim a man is filled with hatred when I don't even know him? That was, that's some of these, the reasoning here. But one of his viewers admits that he plagiarized, but he did it by, occasionally mention my name. And it's just not me. He did it. He's done this. It's a pattern of behavior. And he, was very happy that through proxy, or he or somebody else sent me this video where he was talking about how Dave Chappelle stole his bit, when later I found out he was the one who stole Dave Chappelle. So I documented that in the video. And so he's somebody who had a problem with it, even though he was doing what he accused Dave Chappelle of doing, right? And he's just stealing people's everything, right? And it's not just, he's stealing energy. He's stealing all the stuff that was developed in the truth community. He didn't come up with the flat earth scam, right? He jumped on the board with the flat earthers. That original guy, the Atlantean guy who got the thing going, they had some sort of interview, and like, this is what Alex Jones used to do. Alex Jones used to bring people in, truthers, and do a pre-interview with them and say he was going to put them on his show. And he'd get all their information and all their research, and then he wouldn't put the person on his show, and he would present it like it was his own. And that's what the big parasite was doing. Same sort of stuff, right? And he stole this stuff from the flat earth guy. He doesn't know anything about flat earth. He just jumped on an existing scam and got all these people to go along with him. And then he had beef with that guy and other flat earthers. People who had been doing the flat earth, scam for a long time or whatever. They weren't, they believed it or whatever. And he had beef with them. He's done this, time and time again. Taking people's stuff, not respecting all the hard work and, the stuff they had to go through to create these movements, jumping on these movements, all that, that beta gamma stuff that he does. That's not his theory. He stole someone else's theory, presents it like it's his own. And he's good at, spinning things. And he ropes his dopes, over there into believing him, right? But more importantly, this person that said that I accused him of having hatred in his heart, the guy exudes hatred all the time. He says the word hate, like he says the word he hates these people. He's hated on his former followers who finally see him for what he is. Anybody who confronts him with the truth of what he is. People who called him out. All these people we built this truth community. Many of us have been around for a while. We all have some, work and effort that we put in collectively. He came in and just, stealing and being like a little baby about things, whining, get into these drama, acting like a victim. It's just, very unmanly behaviors, very sort of effeminate behaviors on his part, right? And when someone accuses him of taking something or doing whatever he's doing, and he gets caught doing it, he just flips out, has a tantrum, and then just makes up stuff about the person. So all the things I said about him are true. Like, everyone knows it. Like, it's not even, it should have been known by most people, and most people did know it beforehand. It's not a new discovery. The people who are, have their cold goggles on, they're not going to get it. And I think that a lot of my supporters want me to move on. A lot of my viewers here want me to move on personally, and, whatever. They think this is some sort of, like I said, he's my nemesis or my enemy. And you're not understanding what's going on here. This is a parasite. It isn't a villain. It isn't, some arch rival. This isn't some, super villain, some kind of, whatever it is, criminal, whatever you want to think about. This is a parasite. This is an energetic, spiritual parasite that exudes low vibrational energy, right? The low vibrational current, and steals energy from other people and turns it into hate and, malice and negativity, and everywhere he goes is going to be contaminated with his, bad energy and his, everything that he does. People are saying things like, well, he called you some names and you called him some names. That's not what's going on here. This isn't some equally yoked thing, right? The things that I've said about him aren't names. They're things that he actually does. He's a parasite. He's parasitic. He's been a parasite on me and my channel. And I know this because after I made the video and I cut all ties with him and I did the cord cutting, I felt better. I felt a sense of relief. I didn't know that how much energy and how much and content he was parasiting off of me. And then I realized other people, maybe in silence, are doing the same thing. A lot of low energy people are doing the same thing. So I'm grateful for this experience, from the sense that I can be more aware of that. Like, I can be more aware of that, when I'm doing what I'm doing here, there's people who will suck more than, I'm generously giving the information and energy that I have to give, but people want more, right? I said he has anger, malice, and hatred, and he's exhibited that over and over again. Like, it's a known thing. These are personality characteristics. Every rant, every racist thing he ever said, every, time he went after a person or a group of people, and just the malice and, saying, well, I'm a comedian. That doesn't, come on, really? And so everything I've said about him is true. So it isn't me talking, boop, me just calling him names. This is things that he actually is. This is who he is. Him going after me and saying that I'm a shill for Pfizer, which is obvious lie, right? Just grasping at straws, saying things about my family, whatever, personal appearance. Those are insults, and those are not that I take him as such, because he's talking about himself, right? He's watched everything I put out for years, right? And he's got just like ridiculous things that he's claiming, only because I've told the truth about him. I mean, that's my only crime is I've told him, according to him, it's not a crime, but what he thinks is a crime, is I told everyone the truth about him. And for you people who are like, well, just get over it or whatever, this is not something like that. This isn't an interpersonal thing where I feel hurt. You can't feel hurt by a parasite, right? If you have a tapeworm, do you go, oh, well, you hurt my feelings, right? The thing's been zapping you of your energy. You have to exterminate it, right? You have to get rid of it. You understand this? Like, it's a parasite. It's not it's not somebody who was mean to you. It's not a bully. Like, this person isn't a bully. This person is a parasite. There's a distinction here. This isn't someone who's just, mean-spirited, says mean things and does things like that. This is somebody who's using you like as a food source, right? Not just me, but everybody. His followers and all these people. And then turns it into more hate and more negativity. Like, this is a totally different, animal than you're thinking of. For the most part, for most of you, he didn't steal from you. Like, he didn't steal your energy, misuse your information, take your information, take your bits. And some of the information isn't even mine. It's information that comes from, the divine hierarchy in this Sajmarg spiritual tradition. And it's something that I've been, allowed to speak about, allowed to share the information that's, changed and benefited me in so many ways. It's not mine to, watch somebody just misappropriate it and take it and use it for their own, ill-gotten gains. You catch a thief and you have to do something about it. Everyone would be stealing from you. Like, you have to develop something, make sure you send a message. And in this case, something that's parasitic, a person that's just going around doing this through the whole truth community, they have to be like squashed. They have to be, exposed for what they are, and everyone has to kick them to the curb and say, yeah, you're no longer here. They're banished, right? Someone who's no longer can suck energy. It's like you put them in a glass jar so they can't, get their tentacles on whatever they're, stealing from people. Everyone thinks about saints and spiritual people and like as, nice and kind and, all these things, right? But sometimes you have to do destructive work. And, this happened with Babaji and Lalaji. Lalaji had, 200 followers, and 10 to 15 of them were complete scumbags that tried to kill Babaji and try to steal his spiritual accomplishments and things. And, Babaji was ordered to destroy these people. And some of them, like, their souls completely were obliterated. Their horrible tendencies, like these were, bad souls that incarnated maybe for that reason. There's spiritual warfare that happens all the time. And when you're tasked with doing God's work, and you have those kind of abilities, you have like, some sort of like warrior type spirit, you're asked to terminate, on a spiritual level, somebody who's doing this kind of behavior. And all this victim consciousness from his supporters, well, he had such a tough childhood, and his parents were, we all had tough childhoods, right? It doesn't give a right to suck off other people's energy because your prana is depleted. Well, you need a hug, right? I'm not here to hug people. You need a dad, like I'm not your dad, right? I'm not your uncle. I'm not any of these things. I'm your mentor. I provide generously energy, the transmission, and the techniques, and now all the stuff. Though there's a Gratefulness meditation channel, people can, learn to fish for themselves, learn to connect and extract. God is infinite amount of prana. People's primary energy source is prana, and you have infinite amount of prana. Pranahuti in the Sajmark system is a open doorway, through conduits to fill yourself with prana as much as you want, as much as God's love is there for everyone. But people don't want it. Like, they want it in some other form. They want it in a perverted form, in an impure form. They're scared of God, and they're scared of, God's love. I mean, it's crazy, but that's the truth. People say they want love, but they're, they go out and they seek relationships with people who are incapable of giving love. You see it all the time. People are warped and twisted, and they've lost the ability to get what's pure and good for them and what's wholesome, and they just want, it's darkness reaching out for the darkness. This guy, I mean, I talked to him. I said, maybe you want to try heartfulness, right? Like maybe you want to, do the meditation, but he didn't want to do it because then he wouldn't be in charge, right? He would, his ego doesn't want to submit to his soul or some higher authority because he's parasitic in nature. He's a taker, and he's just going to take as much as he can. It wasn't enough for him. Like he was getting, content from me. He was getting energy from me, whatever. Me and other people. And that just wasn't enough. Like he wanted me to, talk about it. He wanted me to shout him out. He wanted me to, have conversations with him. He wanted me to, validate him some way. He wanted me to, he's very needy. Like nothing would ever be enough for this person because he's completely bankrupt. He's devoid of his own creative energy, his own ability to create these things for himself. And you can see this with all the beasts and negative interactions he's had and these, relationships he's had with all these people, negative relationships and hostile relationships where he goes on the attack when he's, the only one who's in the wrong. The other people are just saying the truth about what he is. I didn't seek this out. It wasn't something I was interested in, but I received my orders, which I explained, in depth in the first video I made or the 5-hour video I made, and then since then. And it's clear what has to be done here in terms of on the spiritual level. The person has to be stopped from this behavior. And, of course, he's not wanting that because somebody who's that desperate, who's that bankrupt, who's that depleted, and is, their only way of survival is to steal from other people. I talked about this with Will Smith and Madam Expiration Date. They had all the fame, and they were #1 celebrities. They were top celebrities, A-plus list celebrities. The #1, movie, the #1 actor, Will Smith for years, and all the other bogus rap stuff he had and all that stuff. And Madonna, #1 female singer, #1 artist, both make hundreds of millions of dollars. And they still had some leftover fame. They didn't fade away completely. But they wanted to get back what they had lost, right? Because they're desperate. They're feeding off the crowd. Like they don't have their own energy. They can't stand on their own energetically. And I know a lot of people like this. They can only suck energy off of other people. They can't, they're not self-sustaining. And they seek energy from other people. There's lots of people like this, and some people are worse. And this guy, just happened to, pick the wrong person, right? This is what's happening here. This behavior can't be allowed to go on. When it's seen and it's, it's there, it has to be exterminated. The behavior is counterproductive to the collective and, individual people who are being used as energy sources. All right, I got some other things to get to here. I will tomorrow. I'm going to wrap this thing up, but I just, want to make this clear. Those of you who want me to move on or, this is, like anything else, I feel like I'm ordered to do it. Like this is, my spiritual path and something has been brought to my attention and it's playing out in whatever way it's going to play out. And, this is what needs to be done. And anybody who's supporting the parasite, has to be considered, part of the problem. I think everyone can understand that, right? If you're supporting Dracula, if you're Dracula's Alfred, then you're, that's a problem, right? Like even if you're a good person or you think you're a good person, you're supporting somebody who's out there sucking energy off other people. You're complicit in creating the problem, so you're, going to get some of the consequences, right? And that's, something you should consider. Anyways, I'll continue this tomorrow. I just listened to the voiceover you just heard, and I sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't re-listen to the voiceover, but I had no idea what was in it. It was done at 11:30. I said that I talked to the big parasite. What I meant by that was there was a exchange on Instagram where I said maybe you want to, because he was talking positively about some Samskaras and Saj Marg, and I said, well, maybe you want to try it. Heartfulness was before the dodgy thing. Maybe a couple of years ago, I don't know, year and a half ago, and he was certainly benefiting from it. Someone listening to all those things, but he didn't want to do it, and I kind of understand why. I kind of understood why then. Somebody just mentioned that Curtis Stone watched my channel from time to time, I guess, or talked about on his channel. Here was the comment here. Maybe not. I thought it was queued up here. Curtis Stone has actually talked about you from time to time in his live streams in the past in a very positive way, and has promoted your children's book, My Friend Within, on his channel. I said My Friend Within, which I wasn't aware of. But that was what I tuned into, that, moment. There was a variety of things that were happening that I was unhappy about, and in terms of the big parasites' behavior. And when I watched that video, and the video clip was, there would be no videos had I not watched that interview between him and Dr. Shiva. And I was cutting the lawn, so I could have missed out. I wasn't listening intently. But Shiva was asking him about his land. And so, you bought collective land? He said, well, no. The big parasite, well, no, you can't do it that way. You have to have only one person own it. And I'm like, that's not how, like, I'm not some, I understand that that's not true. And then he said, if one person that everybody trusts has the land, and not everybody trusts him, that's not accurate. He's had people who have left because they don't trust him. And you can see the comments on my videos. And there's probably lots more people who didn't say anything on the videos who have had fallouts with him, but there are many comments about this. And the breaking off of chunks of his support because they didn't trust him. And some of the things he did that was pretty slimy and sleazy. And then he went on to say that, it's like a king was meant to be. Like, he started talking positively about kings. If you had somebody everyone could trust, then being a king is a good thing. And then I saw that he had changed his name to King of Berteria. And I was like, right? Like, this is, just all the things he said. It wasn't just that. It was a 2 or 3 minute exchange. And I knew people didn't trust him, but I had no idea how bad it was. I didn't know he had just had a falling out. I mean, he had mentioned something about some guy trying to take over, but I didn't know that, other people left with him and they were upset by the way it was handled. And then these other people over the years, and, just all the people he's got beef with and all these things. And he's not a trustworthy person. Like, he doesn't have the ability for self-perception, right? When you are on the internet and you're putting out information about yourself and you're exposing your life to people and you're saying, what your beliefs are, you're going to get people who hate you. You're going to get haters. You're going to have people tell you you're a piece of crap. You might have people who take your information and try to use it against you, things that you said, and take it out of context. The bigger you get, the more you're going to get with that stuff. And then if you do things that are, provoking people, you say things that are going to provoke anger and stuff in people, you're going to get more of that, right? And I'm aware of that. And you have to make your peace with that, or you shouldn't be on the internet. If you're going to go talk and, be opinionated, someone as hateful and controversial as the big parasite is, he's going to get pushback, and he's never able to figure that out, which is a concern in itself. Like, it's just the way it is. And I've had to deal with that myself. And I felt like the best way was for me to just continue what I'm doing. And even if people are like, well, this guy is misusing and misappropriating your content or whatever, like they were doing with the big parasite, I was, I just not my problem. Like, I just, I'm just doing what I'm doing, and I'm not here to police and, go out and deal with that. And how can I? Like, what can I do about it, right? Over the years, when he first became a fan of mine, I checked out his channel, and, it says something about that he thought he was a bear. Oh, yeah, I thought he was a bear. And there was a clip I saw, and I'm not sure when it was, but it was early on. And he was like creating imaginary dialogue between him and his supporters. And he was like, when they were talking to him, they were like, hey, Big Bear. Well, what about this Big Bear? Oh, Big Bear, Big Bear, Big Bear. And like, he just kept on doing it. Like, he kept on in the conversation that he was imagining, they were all calling him Big Bear. And I'm like, the guy's giving himself a nickname, which is always a weird thing. When you try to give yourself a nickname where he, people didn't just start calling him that. he wanted that, like the George Costanza, the George Costanza, where he wanted the name T-Bone, and he ended up with the nickname Coco the Chimp, right? He wanted to be nicknamed T-Bone, so he ordered T-Bone steaks from his boss, who gave people nicknames. But at the end, he was nicknamed Coco the Chimp, and someone else was named T-Bone. So when you try to choose your own nickname, it backfires, and usually it's not fairly accurate, right? It's going to be more positive than people are willing to do. It's just a weird thing. That whole weird thing where he gave himself a nickname, and then all these people named themselves after bears, always was like weird. It's like I never really got used to it, and I had a lot of people subscribe to me that were named Bear. Now they're no longer there. They're no longer listening to me, whatever, no longer commenting. And it's okay. Like I just, I always thought the thing was weird. That a bear, also I was watching the show Ozark, and there was a gay character who was in the FBI, and he was trying to seduce some hairy, bearded redneck, and turn the guy so he could bust somebody else, right? And he called him a big bear. This was a term for big homosexual men, and I know that they've been saying that the big parasite is that, like, he just has these weird posts, some posts that have made people question his sexuality. So that whole thing was weird, right? And now that I've seen the way he reacts, and he has these tantrums, bears are ferocious, and they have characters and qualities that he doesn't possess. I'm not sure why he thinks he's, a big bear, because the way that he reacts when he takes a little bit of criticism, and he goes on these, very, emotionally based, immature, not manly rants, and behaves in ways that men don't behave, right? He crosses lines that men don't cross, all the things he says about people's families. He gets families involved. This has been an ongoing criticism, and he goes after people in a way that men just don't do that stuff. And there's reasons why. There's rules of engagement, there's things. And like he, breaks those rules. And so all that stuff, wasn't something that made me psyched that he was a fan and he was talking about my stuff and, and appropriating some of it and all these things that I now know was actually worse than it was. And as I hope this is wrapping up, I feel this is, I don't know how much more I would have to say about the whole thing. I mean, the guy's just, he demonstrates, why would I need to explain his behaviors and, these things I know. And, I went through the various stuff, the access to personality disorder stuff and, behaviors that he did where he glommed onto the flat earth community and, the way he built community building and a lot of his manipulative behaviors, his manipulation and messages to me where I could see he was trying to manipulate me to one way or another, very manipulative and, the way he worded things and, asking questions, trying to engage me in conversation and wanting more of my time. I try to treat all my viewers the same way. Like some are around longer, so, people I know a little bit or whatever. But, he was somebody who was very demanding and all these things. But he's just displaying this. He's not hiding. And I guess that's, if there's something to his credit, he's just, totally transparent with who he is. I mean, I guess there's layers of stuff that people don't see that's even worse, but, he's not hiding it, kind of like Trump doesn't hide it. And if people can't see it, they can't see it. It's not my problem, right? It's not anybody's problem. And, it is what it is. But certainly for the rest of us, he's, a parasite, and these parasitic behaviors are just not good for anyone. All right, so I'm going to wrap this one up here. Hopefully this is, I'm just done with it because I don't know what value there is for me to talk more about it. And unless some, new download of information comes to me, then, I would like to just move on and go back to my other stuff. And we'll see what happens. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.